Is Israel's protective edge exposing the country's economic weaknesses? Andrew Saks-McLeod joins me down the line to discuss. Andrew, today the third estimate GDP is released from Israel. However, the question has been asked, in these days of rockets and runs to the bomb shelter, is there room for taking pride in economic data reports? You're based in Israel. What do you think?
Absolutely. I think that during the first quarter there was a lot of positive outlook towards the GDP, and the GDP itself actually expanded by 0.68%, which at the moment looks likely to continue throughout the year. We still have other factors which contribute to a continually increasing GDP, one of which is a very low youth unemployment rate. And whilst the Israel Defense Force has called upon over 20,000 reserve army recruits during the current and ongoing Mivtza Tzuk Eitan, which means in English Operation Protective Edge, which is now on its 9th day. Many of them are under 40 years old and have executive jobs in the medical technology sector and the computer software industry, and they will return to such positions once the operation is concluded, which is likely to be within the next few days.
According to the Financial Daily Globes, 30% of the tourists who planned to visit Israel in July and August have cancelled their trips. Which sectors are hurting the most, and how damaging could this be long term?
It is unfortunate that Hamas decided to embark on an unrelenting rocket attack campaign during the summer months, which are very popular with overseas tourists who not only come to Israel to learn about its biblical history, but also to enjoy the pristine beaches, the clear blue skies, and the extremely high quality of entertainment, including more restaurants per square kilometre in Tel Aviv than any other city worldwide. They also know that Tel Aviv is a very safe, large city to visit. Bearing all these factors in mind, the summer months of July and August usually provide much of the revenue for the tourist industry for the entire year. After the last operation, which was called Amud Anan, which means Pillar of Defense, back in November 2012, recovery was fast and tourists returned within a very short time, just a couple of months later. By the winter, all new tourists will start to arrive again. It's only those with current reservations have cancelled, and as Globe said, it's only 30% of such.
Israeli stocks jumped the most since December after energy companies raised estimates for reserves at the Leviathan gas field by 15%, even as the conflict between Israel and militants in the Gaza Strip intensified. Is it true, even in times of turmoil, there is still opportunity to be had for Israel?
That is true, and our stock exchange, headed by NADEX chairman Yossi Beinart, is a unique one, as it has many relatively new firms that have gone public shortly after starting up. You mentioned the gas, and Israeli natural gas can certainly be harnessed. The stock may well go up in firms overseas that invest in that resource, but if it's exported abroad, then foreign markets will benefit from engineering developed in Israel and the discovery and exploration that came to discover the natural gas. Therefore, they may well invest in the companies here which conduct the engineering. Here in Israel, most firms go public very quickly, largely due to the debt-free nature of most startups, which are backed by venture capital funds. An example is that California's Greylock Partners is a very well-known venture capital firm. Most of its startups are based in Silicon Valley, but it has its only worldwide office outside California here in Israel.
The market seems to have already priced in the current conflict, but not yet pricing in a ground operation. Based on past operations, the market estimates the economic damage to be limited. Do you agree?
I do agree indeed. It's looking increasingly unlikely that there will be a ground incursion. Israel does not like to put any citizens at risk at all. In terms of stability, our financial sector is very conservative, mostly debt-free, and has been led in a continual upward direction for many years, regardless of any difficulties with the neighbours. I do indeed, therefore, agree that it is very likely that there will be little damage, if any at all.
Last month, the Bank of Israel maintained interest rates but cut their growth outlook. Some economists believe the bank has to take into consideration rising home prices and the strengthening shekel. But how much can the central bank do in these times? In terms of raising confidence, at least, what action are you expecting, and what is your outlook for the shekel?
I think confidence is very high in general among all investors, private and institutional. And I think the interest rates may increase steadily. However, property is still very, very expensive in most cities in Israel. The shekel is likely to continue to grow, in my opinion. It offers great buying power abroad, and the Bank of Israel is widely known as a prudent central bank, which has very low exposure to debt and regulates the national bank stringently, as well as having many investments from successful and genius companies in Israel, which also bolsters the economy. In my opinion, it is a case of business as usual across most sectors.
Andrew, thank you so much for your time. Viewers, also on the TV team's news agenda is an economic update on India with Darren McDermott and reaction from China's latest GDP data with Ben Jones. So make sure you keep clicking back. Goodbye for now.